Our survival part as human beings, we really get into habits a lot. That's how we motivate ourselves to change, to create new habits, to eliminate poor habits. And that's true in the marital relationship as we get in these patterns. And so it's important to identify those patterns we want to change. We cannot depend on our commitment when there's emotion involved. Our emotion gets involved, that's our survival part. With emotion, we go back into what we have practiced. That's why we're grateful for emergency personnel. When I was in the military, we would practice. That's why sports teams practice. What you practice is what you're going to do in the relationship. So I have a couple stories to share with that. One is I have a nephew that a few years back went through the police academy, and he came and shared the story about how the training used to be as opposed to how they upgraded it. It became very important because it saved lives. So similar to the military, they would be at the range practicing shooting their .45 so they can get better shots, so they can hit their target that they intend to. So in the training before, it used to go like this: shoot, 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 pick up your brass, all the casings from the shells after they shoot. Shoot, 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 pick up your brass, shoot, 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 pick up your brass. And when they did that, what they found later, unfortunately, that officers found dead from a live firefight with brass in their hands. On video, it showed the officers, when they ran out of bullets, instead of reloading first, they would pick up the brass first. Very dangerous, and it costs lives. So they changed the training just a little bit. Shoot, 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 reload, shoot, we're all done. Now pick up your brass. That little change saved lives. And you think about when you've got an argument with your spouse, how often have we found ourselves saying things or reacting in ways that we do not want to react? So practicing is a very key element. For one, as we talked about the elements of change, you want to motivate yourself with pain and pleasure. But another big part of that is practicing. I came across this principle serendipitously, however that is, you know what I mean, serendipitously. So one day, I don't even remember what I was upset about. I was in the garage, I was upset about something, and I decided in that moment I was going to go share this with my wife. At this particular time, she was in the bathroom brushing her hair, and I came in and I verbally accosted her. It wasn't even about her. Fortunately, because it wasn't personal and about her, I had just enough brain cells working because I was wound up to recognize that what I had just done really caught her off guard. And seeing that, I froze in my tracks. I stopped and I walked backwards. And I said, that was bad. Let me try that again. And so I approached her again. I was still wound up and I did better, but with a twinkle in her eye, she looked at me and says, that was better, but do it again. And so I walked backwards again and I did it again, and she said, that was better, but try this different. On the fourth time that I did that, I was grateful that I got it good enough where she was just giggled, and we were able to end that with a hug and a kiss and some giggles because obviously I had done very badly and we solved it very quickly. This is something I share with just about every couple, is to use that principle of practice. I call that the old Blockbuster intervention, where it used to say on the old video, VHS, be kind, rewind. Anytime you find yourself in a situation that went badly, even if you recognize it a whole week later, maybe it takes a week for you to realize, hey, I really need to do better with that. As soon as, whether it's a week or 3 days or 1 day or 2 hours or 10 minutes. When you recognize you've done badly and that's a repeated pattern of your emotional self with agreement with your spouse, then you go back and recreate this scenario and practice doing it the correct way, the kind way. So you rewind and practice that. Now, the key element is at least 3 times practice how you want that to go. And some couples, you still have to practice the same thing over and over again until you get it correct. That's reminding that you don't need to pick up the brass in the middle. Some things you need to take a time out for, some things you just need to walk away. And that's the same principle of practice anytime you're emotional. And now I use that same principle with addiction as well, is you must practice a healthy response. By practicing, then you're training yourself to do better.